A 10-year-old boy was locked in a stone cell and told his mother had been executed. What happened next would haunt France for 2 centuries. June 1793, the Temple prison in Paris. I've walked through enough detention blocks to recognize the sound, keys on iron, boots on stone, the particular silence that follows a cell door closing. But this wasn't a military stockade or a wartime camp. This was where they kept the heir to the French throne, a child. And the instructions from the Revolutionary Committee were explicit: isolate him completely, no contact. No mercy. His name was Louis Charles, born 1785. Before the terror, before the guillotine, he'd been the Dauphin, the golden boy of Versailles, fourth in line to the throne. Then his father, Louis Roman XVI, lost his head in January. His mother, Marie Antoinette, followed in October. By 12 years old, the boy had watched his world burn and his parents die. Most people don't survive that psychologically. Louis Charles didn't survive it at all. Here's what we know for certain. He entered the Temple a bright, literate boy. He left it 10 years later, if he left it at all, as a broken man. The official story says he died of tuberculosis in June 1795, age 10. But I've read the medical records myself. They are vague, contradictory, convenient. Let's back up. The French Revolution didn't just want to topple a king. It wanted to erase the concept of kingship entirely. The royal family wasn't just imprisoned, they were systematically humiliated. Marie Antoinette was paraded through streets in an open cart. Louis Roman XVI walked to the guillotine with dignity. But the boy, he was something worse than a prisoner. He was an inconvenience. The Temple was a medieval tower complex that had housed knights, then nobles, then during the terror, enemies of the state. When they brought Louis Charles there in August 1792, he was with his family. His mother, his sister, his aunt. They occupied separate rooms, but at least there was proximity. Then his father went to trial. Then he died. Then came the cruelest part. In July 1793, the revolutionary authorities separated the boy from his mother. They moved him to a smaller cell on the upper floor. No contact with other prisoners. No natural light except through a grill. His jailer was a man named Antoine Joseph Santerre, a brutal, ideological man who believed the boy was a dangerous symbol that needed to be broken. What happened in that cell over months, then years, was documented by guards, visitors, and people who worked in the prison. The boy was denied basic hygiene. He was fed rotten food. He was left alone for days. When visitors came, Santerre made sure Louis Charles was dressed in rags, his hair matted, his behavior erratic. The message was clear. Royalty means nothing here. But here's where the story gets complicated. By 1794, Robespierre fell. The terror ended. Suddenly, keeping the boy alive became politically useful again. Different factions wanted him for different reasons. Some revolutionaries thought he could be ransomed. Others saw him as a bargaining chip with foreign powers. Still others believed he was more valuable dead, as a martyr that could destabilize France for decades. The conditions changed. The boy was given better food, better light, better treatment, but the psychological damage was done. He'd been alone in that cell long enough. Witnesses described him as withdrawn, paranoid, occasionally violent. One report mentioned he developed an obsession with scratching at the walls. Another said he talked to himself for hours. In the spring of 1795, a doctor named Desault examined him. His notes are sparse, but they mention a persistent cough, swollen joints, signs of nutritional deficiency. The boy was 10 years old. He looked like he was 30. Tuberculosis, the official diagnosis said. But Desault also noted something else: signs of physical abuse, bruising, old fractures that had healed badly. June 8, 1795. The official record says he died. The death certificate was signed quickly. The body was buried in an unmarked grave at St. Marguerite Cemetery. No public funeral. No witnesses from outside the prison. No one was allowed to view the remains or verify his identity. And this is where the mystery actually begins. Over the next 100 years, dozens of people claimed to be Louis Charles. Some had credible evidence. One man, known as the Baron de Riquimont, had scars, birthmarks, and knowledge of private conversations that only the Dauphin would know. Another, called Naundorf, lived in England and maintained his claim until he died in 1845. In 1846, the temple was demolished. Workmen found something in the courtyard, human remains, a small skull, bones that looked young. The authorities quickly collected them, placed them in a lead box, and had them buried again. No scientific examination, no verification, just handled. 2 years ago, DNA testing was finally performed on those remains. I've read the lab reports. The science is clear. The bones belong to a child who died around age 10, consistent with tuberculosis, consistent with the timeline. But here's the thing, the bones also show evidence of trauma. Old breaks, infection, neglect. So did Louis Charles die of disease? Almost certainly. But did he die of neglect, of abuse, of deliberate maltreatment designed to ensure he couldn't survive? The evidence suggests yes. Whether his death was accidental or engineered remains unclear. But one thing is certain. He was a 10-year-old boy, locked in a stone cell, abandoned by everyone who might have saved him. The official story says tuberculosis. The human story says something darker. A child became an inconvenience, then a liability, then a ghost. France moved on. The royalists created myths around him. The revolutionaries forgot him. And a boy who should have been remembered as a victim was buried twice in unmarked graves. History doesn't always care about the children caught in its machinery. We remember the guillotines, the speeches, the ideological battles. We rarely ask what happened to the 10-year-old in the tower. But he was there. He suffered. And his bones still carry the marks of it. Subscribe, because the palace scandals that shaped Europe deserve more than footnotes in dusty textbooks.